So I think we can start now. Good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this media come together organized by the African Tobacco Control Alliance, ATCA. Our come together today is organized under the theme strengthening media engagement in tobacco control in Africa. And it is a session brought up by ATCA to unify media practitioners. We all know the important role the media plays in tobacco control in Africa and globally. And this initiative is aimed at bringing us all media personalities and communication experts to the table to discuss issues related to the topic of tobacco control. We understand that many of us here are also maybe not communication people, and maybe some people are not from out of Africa, but we left this discussion open to everyone because we do understand that there are lots of people in the tobacco control community globally who are interested in tobacco control in Africa. So we are all welcome to this session. My name is Caleb Bayong. I'm the communications officer of the African Tobacco Control Alliance, and we would start right away with a word of welcome from the executive secretary of the African Tobacco Control Alliance, Mr. Leon Sesu. We can't hear you, Mr. Sesu. You're muted.
Ah, ok, excusez-moi. Toutes mes excuses, j'étais en mute. Je disais bonjour, bonsoir à vous tous, selon là où vous êtes.
Be at this time, and I'd like to say yours and thank you for joining this meeting. It's an honor for us to have you here today, and this initiative, which brings together media and communication experts, it's one of its kind that ATCA is organizing. In such initiative, we really want your contribution to come up. This is the first initiative with experts, and we're going to brainstorm. This will now be the first session that we will be organizing with communication and media experts, but the ultimate goal for us is to create a movement, come up with a movement that will bring together all the journalists and media and communication experts on the African continent, because, you know, we facing the challenge that we have is great, and the challenge that we have is public health issue. It is about development at large regarding tobacco use. And again, it is a challenge regarding an industry confronting us with powerful multinationals. So the media experts, media and communication experts will play a major role. You play in a crucial role. You play even more role. That's why we have opportunity to come together and discuss. Apart from the contributions and the inputs from resource person, we're going to launch today as well what we call the Media Awards. The Media Award, which is an annual award for media professional. We're going to share with you this initiative as well. And within that, you're going to go together, of course, with your colleagues. You're going to share such initiatives and going to buy in into this initiative so that we can all contribute to that for it to become an annual award, annual initiative that can help us to fast track the implementation of the Framework Convention FCTC on the African continent, and also so that we can also uh, mitigate the impact of the tobacco industry on tobacco policies in Africa. Thank you so much for joining this call. Wish you a fruitful sharing experience to each and every one, and that's your input the contributions during this webinar and throughout the year regarding the award. We're expecting a lot from you. We are expecting a lot from your media production. We hope that you always be by our sides, supporting tobacco control in Africa and generally supporting the progress or the advancement of health issues. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leon Sesu. Without wasting any more time, we would go straight to someone who's going to share brief communication with us today, and then we would engage. That will be a Kickstarter to our discussions, and that is Mr. Richard Baguma. He's going to share with us on the relevance of tobacco control media engagement in Africa. Mr. Baguma, over to you, please.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to share. Like you said, a good evening if you are here where I am, a good afternoon and a good morning, depending on wherever you are, and greetings from here. Like has been said, my name is Baguma Richard. I am the coordinator of the Uganda Health Communication Alliance. I'm part of the National Tobacco Control Committee in Uganda, but also a journalist and communicator who has had quite interest for a couple of years in tobacco control. And I want to thank you, the organizers. I want to thank you, ATCA. I want to thank you, the organizers, for these opportunities you give us, but also for me, for taking on the mantle to face this huge challenge that is facing our continent, this tobacco thing that is facing our continent, but also the world. And when I was given this opportunity to share, I just thought I will just share from my own experiences and see what over the more than a decade now of tobacco control media engagement, what have been the things that I think media engagement brings onto the table, like I was asked to do. Now, when you are looking at media for tobacco control, I think you need to think about it like you do for every other campaigns. We have the traditional mass media that we know, TV, radio, newspapers, magazines. But it's critical also to look at that, but it's very important to consider folk media, poetry and song and performance, those types of things. It's also important to think about the different types of out-of-home media. You are talking about outdoor means. It also, you are looking at the transit media. Transit media, the things that are in locomotion, the things that are in movement, buses or trains or minibuses or bicycles or whatever mode, for example, of public transport that you have. It's important to look broadly at engaging the media beyond the traditional and social media that we know, but also to try and, as much as possible, think about convergence. For me, it's like this different streams that contribute to a river. So you have this big river, the River Nile, that starts, for example, from Uganda, but it's made up of different tributaries. And so you will have a large volume of water, which is now a large volume of messages that all converge in one place and then can give you impact when you do tobacco control. So they are the traditional things. You are talking about information, you are talking about education, because tobacco control is not an everyday or simple subject. So the media helps you to break down the complicated science of tobacco control, but it also helps you to clarify, engaging with the media really. It helps to clarify some of the contentious issues. Tobacco control can be very contentious. The arguments can be contentious. People have traditional experiences. People have personal priorities and preferences. But also, It's important because you are also countering. Engaging the media is also very important because you are countering a very important and well-resourced opponent, the tobacco industry. So engaging the media, which remember is also being engaged by the tobacco industry, and the tobacco industry uses a lot of resources to go to the media. So engaging them very strategically, engaging them in an intentional and purposeful way can help very, very much, can be very, very relevant in countering the machinery of the tobacco industry. And they have a strong public relations and public engagement machinery. So, and they have opposing messages and they have confusing messages. So it's important that the media engagement helps tobacco control people to clarify the misinformation, to debunk the disinformation, and to bring arguments on the table that can be understood by the different audiences in their contexts. And that's important. It's very relevant when you in every tobacco control work to engage the media. It's also critical. Engaging with the media empowers the media people themselves. It empowers the journalists and the social media influencers and the people who write plays. It empowers them because it gives them information, but it also empowers other stakeholders because a lot of stakeholders get information from the media. It also empowers policy people on your side to put information and contribute knowledgeably to the debates that will arise when you start promoting tobacco control. The debates will arise, controversies will arise. So you need to empower tobacco control advocates. You need to empower the media, even when they are not just tobacco control advocates, to be knowledgeable, to challenge and debunk things, but to be very knowledgeable and confident because they have knowledge. So engagement with the media for us is one of the things that we were able to get champions. It helped us to recruit champions because we engaged with the media. They became our champions and they were very knowledgeable, they were very confident, and they could very intelligibly put these arguments and debunk myths and misconceptions. The other thing that we have found that was very critical was because tobacco control did not have a profile among the development or health priorities, for example, in Uganda, or even I can say in Eastern Africa, or even in the African continent. Tobacco control is a relatively new development issue. Although tobacco use kills millions of people, more than many other health or other conditions. Although tobacco growing and tobacco issues impoverish many people, it has not been an important issue on the agenda. And so it's critical that tobacco control stakeholders do engage the media so as to raise the profile, so as to raise the prominence of this very important development and health issue. And when you engage the media then sees and gets to appreciate the importance of what you are talking about. And then they can go and share it, but give it the necessary prominence. You see, the other thing about engaging the media is because once the media appreciate the matter and the issue very well, they start telling the story in multiple angles. They simplify and clarify for you the language and the science, but they also give the story to the public in the many creative ways that they have. It's critical to engage people in the traditional media, to engage social media people, to engage folk media people, to engage the transit, because one of the issues that comes up is keeping tobacco use away from any transportation or public means, smoke-free environments. So to engage these people and make them understand your science is they will tell the story on your behalf in very creative and very sustained ways. It also is very important, and this has been extremely useful. It was extremely useful for us in Uganda, and it continues to be very useful, that we could not have the necessary resources to pay for the media space that we get as a result of effective engagement of the different platforms of the media, particularly the media personnel. We could never have paid for that space. So tobacco control stakeholders need to realize that the return on investment, the media buyback, it doesn't matter whatever the platform you're using, of effectively engaging and sustainably engaging these media people, the return is so high that we would never have been able to do that using our budgets. And that's critical. So for me, it's a resource mobilization thing. It's that the resources come in kind. You see, partly sometimes for us advocates, the mistake we make is that we think resources are just money. But if you look at the return on this media engagement, it can be extremely high, and we could never have mobilized these resources. And I spend time on this because it's important for me, for tobacco control stakeholders to see this as a resource mobilization and effective resource utilization activity for tobacco control. The other thing, of course, is that the media helps us. The media is one of the very critical vehicles that we get to use to advocate for our policy and program positions. The laws, the policies that we push, the investments that we want public resources to be put, the programs that we want to succeed. Obviously, the media, engaging the media on these issues. And when we talk about engagement, we are not talking about talking to or talking at. We are talking about bringing them on the table right from the design of our campaigns and programs. They will really, they do a great job in bringing these policy positions of ours to the policy makers because they pay attention to the media. It doesn't matter what platforms you are using. And so the role of advocacy can be so critical and important for us in our advocating, in our engaging the media. The other two or so things I want to talk about is mobilization of support. Of course, once we engage the media effectively, the media goes to the public, their audiences, and we will find positivity. We will be received positively, but we also get support from the public. And it's always critical that when you advocate, that when you push for your agenda, you want to have the public on your side. The media does this for us, mobilization and convincing of the public. And then the question of feedback. The media helps us in tobacco control work. Engaging the media well is very, very useful in providing platforms for feedback on what we are doing. And we always need feedback. We need quick feedback. We need informed feedback in order to design properly, to know where we are going, or to redesign. So the insights into the work that we do, the insights into how we are connecting with the audiences that we are targeting, or even failing to connect, is very, very critical. And engaging with the media effectively will help us. Sometimes it is instant on a talk show, or very quick response to a tweet. Sometimes it is comments on blogs, or even letters in the newspapers. Sometimes it is the audience's reaction to a presentation, a play. But the feedback and the insights that come are critical to the success of tobacco control programming and advocacy and policy work in all that we do. So I think it's critical. I had 15 minutes. I want to conclude that, you see, engagement with the media is a very profit-making, if I may use the word profit, is a very profit-making and high return activity for any tobacco control work that we do. This needs to be strategic. It needs to be well planned. It needs to engage the media people right from the design of the programs throughout implementation and feedback and evaluation. But it is also important to recruit media people deliberately as our champions, so that even now, sometimes they are the ones, actually many times for us, they're the ones who bring the ideas on how we should proceed. And then they become our defenders, they become our advocates. And I think this is critical, and it's been for us very empowering, very revealing, but also very challenging to learn and to share. I would like to thank you for the attention. I would like to thank you for organizing this, and I'm okay to respond to whatever may come up. that needs clarification. But I want to thank you for listening to me and thank ATCA for the opportunity to share with you our own insights from here. Again, my name is Baguma Richard. I coordinate the Uganda Health Communication Alliance. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Baguma Richard. A key word or a key message I take from your presentation is that as tobacco control advocates, or tobacco control stands to gain a lot if we integrate the media in our work. And I think the media people who are here are also seeing just how important their role is, and they might not know the extent to which they could be helpful, how helpful, the extent of the help they provide tobacco control and humanity, I must say, because tobacco control is not really tobacco control advocates, but we are trying to save lives. And so by being engaged with tobacco control advocates, by being involved in tobacco control, they're doing a lot to save humanity. Thank you very much, Mr. Baguma. Let's also quickly hear from the second resource person we had. Maybe you want to say a word or two, add on to in 5 minutes, then we'll open up the discussions. I would like to say that should we have questions or discussions, feel free to raise your hand or just put it in the chat and we would bring it up during the discussion session. So I would welcome very quickly Mr. Philip Jakpo of Corporate Accountability and Public Participation, CAPA.
Public Participation Africa.
CAPA. Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, Philip Jakpo is my name. I think before I even go into the depth of the discussion, which what I'm supposed to speak on is experience sharing. I think, like Baguma said, Richard Baguma, a well capacitated journalist becomes a tobacco control champion ultimately. And I think Mr. Caleb is an example of what Richard Baguma is talking about. But I'll leave Caleb to tell his own story. But he is a perfect example of what Richard is talking about because, of course, he, by training, is a journalist, just like some of us. I trained as a journalist before I joined tobacco control under the Environmental Rights Action before we moved to Corporate Accountability and Public Participation Africa 2 years ago. Well, my take-off point, because Richard mentioned a lot of things, and the working with the media is, like he said, a river of so many streams. It is about working together. It is about capacitating the people we work with. So now experience sharing, I will take it from the perspective that for media professionals, experience sharing has become very crucial, especially in tobacco control, because as we know, and like Richard mentioned, the tobacco industry has become very, very dynamic. The industry has become creative in ensuring business as usual. And what is business as usual for the tobacco industry? It is about wooing new smokers. Before now, media professionals have been working in silos and confronting the industry as a unit. But the reality today is that the industry, as we know, spends billions of dollars yearly on ads, marketing, and this has brought a new realization to us that the battlefield of our tobacco control work is actually the media. So if the tobacco industry did not know the power of the media, it will not be spending that much on the media. I think in the US alone, about $8.2 billion was spent on the media, I think in 2019 by the tobacco industry. So that is the US alone. And of course, the industry pumping that much money is not pumping money because it feels you just throw money somewhere, but because they know that is where they also get their returns. So for us, we must be very conscious of the channels that we use. The channels we use are important. The messages we put out are important. How we tailor those messages are important. In fact, the timing of putting out those messages are important. Those we target with our messages are also important. In fact, and how we engage the media is important. How we engage the media organization that the journalists work with is also important. And so we must create that avenue where we can learn, where we can unlearn, where we can even relearn, so that we are all rounders in our field and not caught otherwise by the industry. And some of the areas that we, apart from the successes of our campaign, some of the fields that require experience sharing, including tobacco industry monitoring techniques, because this is very, very important. We must know how the industry works. It includes the kind of challenges we meet in engaging the media and the changing tactics of the industry and even policymakers. Of course, there are emerging issues, and that's why I mentioned that we cannot work in silos. We must learn from our partners. And emerging issues, including, for instance, the so-called safe alternatives to combustibles that the industry has continued to, pump money into in a PR bliss, is something we need to share experience on to understand how this sector works. Yesterday, I had a Zoom call with some university students who are interested in tobacco control, and I think one of them asked what, for me, is the biggest challenge that I have had in my 15 years of tobacco control and working in the media. It was a very simple but deep question, and the question was that how have I been able to navigate working with the media? And I told him that the most important thing is building trust. Richard mentioned a lot of things about you send the press statement to a journalist. If you send the press statement to a journalist and he uses it without questioning, it is because he trusts what you have sent. Because trust, of course, sustains that relationship we have with the media. It is trust that makes the journalist to use your press statement without even doubting the content. It is trust that also makes them side with you as a partner in addressing the tobacco menace, because we don't see the media as, oh, those media people. We see them as partners. In our report, we call the media our media partners, our friends. And so it is trust that make them see you as a partner and not as an organization merely in need of publicity. So you must be trusted, and the communication you put out there must be trusted. In the 15 years I've worked with the media, there has never been a case of, for instance, tobacco industry suing us or saying we lied in any communication put out there. The most I've been branded personally, and I think that came from Philemon, so that they described me as a rascal because of one of the statements I put out. But that is not to say what I put out there was not correct, but they described me as a rascal. So that will mean I'm getting at them. So as we share these challenges, we must also share success stories to encourage others to aspire. But like Richard mentioned, we must remind ourselves, why is the media important? I want to say this to like wrap up. The media is important because it reaches the mass. If you have a program on radio today, it is thousands of people, millions of people separated in geography that listen to you. So the media is very, very important. The media is the watchdog. The industry fears the media. The industry fears the media. The media is trusted and the media is feared because the industry is concerned about what you put out there. The media can also be manipulated depending on who is driving the media. And most importantly, it is a contested space. So the industry, like Richard said, puts in money to be able to clinch that space. But we will not put money. We don't put money. What we put is that trust that the media has for us. It is the fact that we see the media and make the media our partners so that they know and we know that the issues we are fighting for is issues of common concern. But there are more. We need the media because the media is important as an agenda setter. We need the media to get feedback, like Baguma said. We need the media to change the narrative that the industry puts out there. We need the media to expose the industry. We need the media to educate the populace. We need the media to engage policymakers. So in all these things, what are those tools the arsenal for engaging the media, for putting out those information out. It is through our articles, it is through our press statements, it's through opinion pieces, letters to the editors, press briefings, interviews, newsletters, blogs, and of course, social media, which is gaining more ground. So I don't think I should say beyond this. I always say this, that the theater of the campaign is the media. We value journalists. We cannot do this work without the media. So I want to thank ATCA also for this opportunity to interact with people of like minds. We'll also be very, very open to questions, even suggestions if necessary. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Philip. We hear that the tobacco industry spends billions. In the USA, 8.3 billion. In the USA alone, 8.3 billion to do what the media is doing. And we in Africa, we don't even have that kind of money to spend. So we will not spend money, but our engagement, what the media does for us with very little support is tremendous. And we know that it does bring in a lot of success in the continent. We do record lots of tobacco control successes in Africa. And we know that the media has been a very integral part of all these successes. So the media, indeed, whatever contribution they make, it might seem small, but indeed it's always very, very important. That's what I get from the take-home message I get from your presentation today. Thank you very much. I really want us to get into the discussions, but I also noticed that Mr. Inusa joined us, and maybe he may also want to say something briefly in 2 minutes. And then we would get to the discussions. I see some questions coming in the Q&A section already. Feel free to put your questions there, the Q&A section, and you can also write in the chat if you're more comfortable with that. Thank you. Mr. Inusa, can you hear us?
Oui, je vous reçois.
Okay, so I was asking, maybe
Yes,
you want
I can hear you.
Say something before we get into the discussions.
Vous m'entendez?
Yes.
Oui, je vous reçois.
Okay, so I was saying that maybe you want to say something before we get into the discussions.
Merci beaucoup. Je prends les discussions. Oui, je prends les discussions en retard liées aux aléas.
I'm a bit late due to the challenges regarding internet connectivity. As you know, the challenge on the African continent. I'd like to thank ATCA for having organized such a meeting so that we can interact on the importance of the media in our fights against tobacco. And the eminent previous speakers have already brought out the major aspects of this issue. Let me say a few words. The first thing that we need to note here is that the media, the journalists, are also stakeholders of the civil society. So these are people that we need to engage. We need to sensitize them. We need to bring them along in the fights that we engage in our respective countries. These are key stakeholders, like my colleague from Nigeria said that, so that we can get some messages across, so that we can have lobbying on our decision makers, and also to debunk the attitudes of the tobacco industry. About 20 years experience in Africa, I've realized that we are making progress. I can remember as if it was only yesterday, in the year 2000 in my country, Niger, it was very difficult to have an interview with a journalist, be it TV or radio, to discuss tobacco issues, because this is something which was not known, and had no interest for the journalists, but we're able to engage them so that this tobacco issue is now discussed as a social agenda, as a health issue for the media and also for public authorities. And I'm glad to know that on African continent there, many students in journalism schools or communication schools are calling us regularly to have their dissertation written on the linkage between tobacco use and the youth and development issues and all the other aspects that are so complex regarding this issue. They are right up on that. I think that the journalists and media are key stakeholders for us to succeed in this mission. They are going to have an influence on the public authorities. They have to denounce the attitude of the bad guys and also communicate with the people to raise the awareness of the people on the harmful nature of tobacco use, the major role for them as well to supporters so that we can also speak against the interference of the tobacco industry. If today in the world we've come up to this level of mobilization tobacco control, this is due to the effective work done in the United States, in Canada, in Europe to influence the public authorities and decision makers and also exercise pressure on the industry. That's why we have a globalization of tobacco control. Let me stop there, not to get to the gist of the matter. A few points I wanted to bring on board regarding the relevance of what the both previous speakers said. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Inusa. Thank you. I think we can now open the floor for discussions. And we have a couple of questions. We have quite some questions coming in the Q&A section. We also have some in the chat. I have seen about 3 or 4 questions that are similar. I'm going to group them together, but let's take this first one from Viviane Diatta from Senegal. And Viviane says she's asking her question specifically to Mr. Baguma, and she's asking how should sensitization be done in the transport sector, if I understand her question right. Or how should sensitization messages be vehiculated? Should they be through posters and through posters, or regarding radio and TV programs? Many media houses or many media organs do not talk about tobacco control issues, and what can be done? Is it not good? Is it not important to pay airtime so that we can have tobacco control in such media houses? That's a question from Mr. Baguma.
Thank you. Thank you so much for these questions. I'll start with the last one. About whether we should pay or not pay for airtime at radio stations and other places. I think we need to do a couple of things. We also need to understand that a lot of the media we have are businesses. So they are out there to do business, but also they are what can I use? They are development partners. They are there to cause development and positive change in their communities. In fact, I think if you look at any application for license in any place, this is one of the things the media houses say they will go to do. But it is also critical to remember, I think it's my colleague who has just spoken, who said that because we are journalists, I'm a journalist too, that's where I started off from, like the guys who have spoken here, that we are first and foremost human beings. So the issues that matter to human beings, the issues that affect humanity, the issues that affect people, affect media too. So that's critical to do. So that's one. The second thing is, yes, we need to mobilize resources to pay for some media programs and also other media activities. it is critical to have some money because we all need some money for us to manage to keep alive and to keep going. One thing that is critical to remember is that we are unable as tobacco control stakeholders to raise the billions that I think it was my colleague from Nigeria talked about, which the tobacco industry spends, unable to raise that amount of money. But two, we do not even need to bother with that. What is important is for us to get the message, to get it out, and to build relationships with journalists and media owners and media people. I think that is critical. And our messages will go out. I started off as a journalist myself. The issue of tobacco control, I used tobacco in my younger years before I stopped. And the issue of tobacco control, the dangers of tobacco could resonate with me. So we need to create that resonating with the journalists. And we shall be invited for even airtime, which we can't utilize. We will be overwhelmed with airtime. And we have had this example, these experiences. On some of the tobacco, World No Tobacco Day, we have failed to have enough tobacco control advocates to go and talk about tobacco control in all the media houses which give us free airtime. But we need to engage in a strategic and committed and truthful and honest way, because then we will be trusted and will be given time. The other question, I think, was about how do we go about this? There are many ways of doing it, but also there is no single way. You asked about the transport sector, the things which move, the instruments of motion, vehicles and minibuses and what. There is no one way. Let me give you an example. We targeted the transport industry one time. We just had coffins. We carried coffins. We put there tobacco control messages. We designed, boards which were like coffins. We put tobacco control messages, and we had what we called those death days, death mornings. And we would stand around either the busy roundabouts or the busy intersections where you have traffic lights. And we had these young people standing there. They had messages on t-shirts or caps on their heads, but they also had little flyers with a message about tobacco kills and outlining the dangers in the local language. Now, the drivers of these minibuses and the small vans and the conductors and the people in the cars would spread this message for us beyond where we would have been able to reach. So oftentimes, while we need to think about stickers and posters on cars, we also need to remember that the people who the vehicles are carrying can be one of the most important ways of carrying our message. So there's no one way, there are several ways. It's important to be creative, to look at each context. And finally, for me on this one, please approach the associations and organizations that bring together transport people. The tax associations, the bus associations, the lorry drivers associations, the small motorcycles, here we call them boda, but the motorcycle taxi associations, they can do a great job to reach out to their people and to spread your message at a very minimal or sometimes no cost. I hope that is helpful.
Thank you very much, Mr. Baguma. I think I got quite an answer from your intervention. And I hope Vivian, who asked the question, is also satisfied with the answer. Like I said, we have about 4 or 5 questions. They are all related to something similar, and that's financing for tobacco control. Many of these questions, we have Julius Muhumuza from Uganda. There is Seri Baula from Burkina Faso, Linda Saba from Uganda, and somewhat Jean-Claude Bakali from Togo as well. Their questions are all around financing for tobacco control. And the Jean-Claude Bakali, for example, highlights the fact that it is generally accepted, generally understood that the media is indispensable in tobacco control. But given that it is difficult to, or given that we don't have resources, what can we do? How do we support media? What can we do to ensure that there is more media engagement? What can we do to ensure that there's more resources for the media? And I think I would also just like to give an answer that was given to this question by Philip Jacko, which I see from the platform here. He said he answered this question also asked by Vivian. He said he agrees with the fact that tobacco control, that we need to have investment in tobacco control, but this investment can take other forms. It mustn't only be money. We can invest through trainings, we can invest through information sharing, we can invest through scholarships and others. But we don't have the kind of money that the tobacco industry has to spend on the media. That's Philip's response to this. I would like to just leave the floor open to the other panelists who may want to say something about this. Mr. Baguma or Mr. Inusa, please, or Philip, if you want to say something.
Okay, I think I may just want to shed more light on what I shared with Vivian, because Vivian's question or comment is about how tobacco control champions must also invest. It is true, we must invest, but like I mentioned in the response, we do not have the kind of money that the industry has. In fact, the industry, and that's why I cited the statistics, that was 2019 statistics, in one country alone, in the United States, $8.2 billion. I don't think the whole tobacco control funding globally is even a quarter of that. So these are industries that understand, you know, how to throw money around, compromise people. So that's why we too have decided to be a little creative. Trainings. I mentioned scholarship. Scholarship particularly exposes, and we have done it well in Nigeria here. We may not be giving journalists money, but when there's an opportunity for some scholarship where journalists can train and improve themselves and possibly even make money, we also point them to those opportunities. So while we are not giving that cash, we are giving you the opportunity that can propel you. We also, in the course of our work, because when you also interview a tobacco control advocate, you are also promoting your station. Is it the TV station? Is it the radio station? Is it the newspaper? So if the issue is also made very, very interesting, you are going to have more readership, more viewership, and possibly even adverts. So that, in a sense, also brings some revenue into the media. But we don't, like I said, we don't have as much as the industry does, but within the limited resources we have, we do some small investment in trainings and other things.
Thank you very much, Philip. I just want to find out if someone else wants to intervene on this question.
The question of financing?
Yes, please.
Oh, yeah, you know.
Oui, merci, Caleb.
Yeah, sure.
Et naturellement, la question des finances est
Well, thank you, Caleb. Financing is a major challenge, for particularly for the financing of media activities. Let me say that in 2000 and 2001, with my colleague from Nigeria, Mr. Bode, we got a project with the Canadian Corporation Agency, but it was difficult for them to understand that they can have budget allocation for media, because for them, tobacco issue is just an information. So this does not require financing. Now, with European countries, it's the same situation, but I think that things are moving now. We are making headwinds. People got it clear for a good awareness raising campaign on tobacco for an effective denunciation of tobacco control in tobacco industry. Not only do we need to provide financing to civil society organizations, supporting the media, promoting the media so that they can get specialized in tobacco control on radio. We need to have focal points in the newspapers, focal points, TV, focal media points. They will facilitate our work. And we should not also forget, I forgot to say that journalists today are a preferred target of the tobacco industry. In Francophone Africa and also Anglophone Africa, the journalists are targeted, and the tobacco industry also have focal points to be able to disseminate their information regarding their products. I share the view of my colleague who spoke before me, financing the media action, financing press actions, not only advertorial or advertisement, but my colleague said that the media are also businesses, they are companies, and you concur with me that these are media are having major financial challenges. The private media don't have resources to support the social actors in their domain. We need to support them. The partners that we're working with need to understand that. We need to engage them on that so that in our actions and our proposals, this aspect of the financing should be integrated. Financing on the media in tobacco control. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Inusa. Mr. Baguma, please. Mr. Baguma, you wanted to say something?
I think for me, one of the things I think we need to transit into is to treat tobacco control as a development issue. I think for me, I think we need to, while it is important to have a compartment for tobacco control in our work, I think we need to also start insisting and building a case and putting the statistics and showing that tobacco control is part of the development process and work. That when you finance development, you need to finance tobacco control in order to get success. That tobacco control, for example, undermines the attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals, which is the global agenda for development, that it undermines the achievement of the African Agenda 2063, and in our countries, like in Uganda, that it undermines the National Development Plan. This, I think, is critical. And I'll give you an example. One of the examples I saw here, there is an NGO that is focused on children and particularly children education. I think it's in many other countries, it's called Plan International. On its own, without even having been active part of our campaigns, Plan International had a campaign that was working to save children from labor on tobacco farms. And this is how it came to their attention. Because they sponsored children to go to primary and high school, there were a lot of children who did not return to school, and yet they had the sponsorship, they had the money from this NGO. And they went to find what the problem was. They found that it was during tobacco growing and tobacco harvest time, and therefore the children would miss. So the investment of this NGO in educating the children was being undermined. And they started fighting tobacco growing on their own, and also tobacco use. That was one important example for us that we could see. So I think it's important. The other thing I have seen is also the UN Development Program had some support towards tobacco control, but theirs was because tobacco growing and tobacco use was driving the health budgets very, very high. It was becoming a problem for investment in poverty programs. but also tobacco growing was a challenge because it was promoting poverty in the areas where they were trying to invest to raise the incomes and the welfare of the people there. So I think as tobacco control people, we need to broaden our agenda of tobacco control to integrate with other development issues and therefore raise funds and resources as part of the development financing. I think this is one of the ways we can do mobilize resources in addition to what we already do traditionally. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Baguma. We would like to take as many questions as possible, but we see that we are beginning to run short of time. I would like to quickly read some comments that we have here. This one coming from Daniel Oba from Congo. He says, countries with experience in mobilization of journalists should share their experiences, challenges, with other countries who have difficulties, and in this way we can help to have a common forum where there is all countries are sensitized, experiences shared, and people can benefit. Other countries can benefit from the experiences of others. And then there was this other comment. It came into the chat session from Jonathan Driliga from Uganda. He says, thanks ATCA for this important platform to take stock of the contribution of the media in tobacco control. The most sticky issue at hand is the potential manipulation of some journalists as a result of their various vulnerabilities they are entangled in. We shouldn't bury our heads in the sand. The truth is the media industry is still poorly facilitated, yet journalists are continually confronted by the fact that we have a powerful tobacco industry. And just confirming that as a follow-up to that statement, another comment from Andrew Quizera says, I would like to know how media has responded to promotion of harm reduction strategy by the tobacco industry through seemingly public health learning agencies. I think this is one very crucial point. I don't think we have time to talk about it right now, but I think this could be something we would bring up subsequently, because manipulation of the media, like Andrew has just said, is something very, very rampant today, and it's something that we really need to talk about. So I think that because of time, we would not go into that now, but maybe we could have another session where we would focus on that. That would now bring us to a comment from Alfonso Kasombo, which is leading us to the next agenda on our program. That comment or the question Alfonso is asking is, what media programs has ATCA put in place to keep the media or journalists busy and away from manipulation by the tobacco industry? Thank you very much, Alfonso. Your comment brings us to, or your question brings us to the next section, the next part of this program, which is one of several initiatives that ATCA undertakes to support the media. Maybe before I get to that point, I can quickly say that ATCA does have several initiatives. One of them is media trainings that we organize periodically to train the media on tobacco control issues. We've all seen the importance of training in our discussions today, and ATCA does undertake these trainings in various parts of the region. ATCA does provide information to the journalists. We do facilitate the availability of resource persons, of research, of information, everything that a journalist would need to produce a good story. We do provide that. I should also mention that ATCA runs a network of media professionals This network constitutes is made up of journalists who have participated in trainings organized by ATCA. So there is a full network of over 100 people that exists. ATCA also sometimes, occasionally, when there is financing, we do support investigative reporting to targeting very pertinent issues related to tobacco industry interference, and there are lots of other communication-related activities. ATCA's website is itself a resource hub, a communication resource where journalists can always exploit, which journalists can always exploit to get resources. But one particular element we're going to talk about now, which is part of ATCA's initiative to support journalism and the media, is the Media Award. And this is another initiative that is being organized by ATCA now to support the media, to encourage the media to continue to save lives by, by reporting on tobacco control issues. And if you would permit, we would quickly, I could quickly share my screen now, and we would go to what this Media Award is all about, what it looks like. Let me see. So just a moment, please. Okay, here we are. So this is what we need to get to. First of all, I'll show you how to get to the page. On ATCA's website, you would see that ATCA's website, www.atca-africa.org. Down below the special events section, we have a Tobacco Control Media Award. Now, when you click on the Tobacco Control Media Award, it brings you to this other page. Let me try to get there. I might have to stop the sharing because when I do screen sharing, it blocks certain aspects on my screen. So let me do this and come back here. So this is the initiative we have, the ATCA Tobacco Control Media Award. And what is it all about? It is an initiative by ATCA, a yearly initiative organized by ATCA to motivate journalists to generate compelling tobacco control media productions. Of course, the award is going to recognize the best productions. If you go to this page, you would see all the requirements of what needs to be produced. We need to get the best media productions, productions that have the potential to create an impact, productions that are journalistic and of good technical quality, productions that are original and have not been submitted for similar competitions or for other competitions. So we have three categories: TV, radio, online, and print. And for the cash prizes, we are going to have each category, we're going to select the best, the three best productions for each category, and we would each receive what we believe is a very important tool for the journalist, a laptop, and a cash prize of $500. So for each of these categories, radio, TV, and online, we're going to have we're going to select three best submissions, and each of these submissions is going to receive a prize, a laptop and a cash prize of $500. On this same page, you have the opportunity to submit your entry. You can enter your name, last name and your first name, your email address, the country you're sending the entry from, your media organ, and then you select the category, if it is a TV, a radio, or an online media. Now we encourage, of course, the TV and the radio and even online media, we encourage you to always have a link. You just need to enter the link of your entry right here. If your entry is a print media, a newspaper, for example, and doesn't have a link, then you can upload a file. And of course, you have to declare that you're not affiliated to the tobacco industry. and you click submit. It's as simple as that. Once you have this, you have then submitted an entry to the ATCA Media Award, and our entries are open from this moment, from now till October, till the end of October, till the 31st of October 2022. And then we would have, of course, there's going to be a panel, a jury that would do the selection for us. People can submit as many productions, as many entries as they can produce. But of course, these productions usually should focus on key tactics of tobacco multinationals aimed at undermining the implementation of the WHO Framework Convention on Tobacco Control. So this is the Media Award. This is what it's all about. You go to ATCA's page, and below you click on Tobacco Control Media Award. It will bring you to this page where we are, and then you can submit an entry. I know that we may have questions questions on this award, or questions on what we have discussed today. So for this section, I'm also going to now welcome Belinda Moses from the Campaign for Tobacco Free Kids, CTFK. CTFK, I must say, is a technical partner in this initiative. And so Belinda would also be here to maybe respond to comments or questions that the journalists may have on the Media Award. Thank you very much, Belinda. We can see you. So if you have a question, please feel free to put it in the chat section. Please feel free to put it in the Q&A section. I think, Alfonso, this should answer your question now. We would also be happy to answer other questions that participants may have. You can also raise your hand if you want to talk. Would you raise your hand, and we'll give you the opportunity to say something if you cannot type your question right now. So give a few moments for questions or comments. I see two hands raised. One of them is from Jean-Claude Bakali. Bakali from Togo, you have been given the floor. You can now unmute yourself and ask your question, please, quickly. Go ahead, Bakali.
Hey, bonjour.
Good afternoon. Hello, good morning. Congratulations for ATCA for organizing such a webinar. It's a great pleasure for us to take part in this webinar. My question regarding the award: do you have a specific topic we have to work for our production, or any production is accepted, or do you have a specific topic?
Thank you very much. That question is noted. I see there's a hand raised from Dr. Ernest Zotoa from Côte d'Ivoire. Dr. Zotoa, you can now unmute yourself and ask your question, please.
Oui, bonsoir.
Good afternoon.
Je voudrais dire à mon tour un grand merci.
A big thank you to ATCA. There's no need to introduce ATCA because we work a lot of time with you. We work most of the time with you, and this is a renewed commitment. What we've done today is so crucial. The importance of the media in tobacco control. That's why I agree with Innocent. This also raises financing issues. It is important to provide financing for journalists and media in general. But in Côte d'Ivoire, we try to mobilize or to engage journalists that put in place a network of journalists. we're trying all together to put in place with those journalists. His network is bad. We can hear him. We're calling an award that we're organizing called Tobacco Control Pen. Tobacco Control Pen. The best write-up will receive an award. We can hear him, we're sorry. The line is breaking up. For the awards, we sorry, we can hear Mr. Zutwa.
It's very difficult to get Dr. Zutwa. Unfortunately, we cannot hear him very clearly, but from the little bits and pieces I could pick up from what he was saying, he was highlighting that it is indeed very important to support the media in their tobacco control engagements. And he was talking about a similar initiative they have in Cote d'Ivoire. Unfortunately, we couldn't get lots of pieces from that. From what Dr. Sotoa was saying. I should just quickly highlight that Dr. Enes Sotoa is the tobacco control focal person at the Ministry of Health in Cote d'Ivoire. And Jean-Claude Bakali, who asked the first question, is a journalist here in Togo, and he's a member of ATCA's network of media professionals. And I'll get straight away to his question. He asked if for the media award, journalists can do any media production and submit, and the answer simply is yes, as long as that media production focuses on exposing key tactics of tobacco multinationals and is, key tactics of tobacco multinationals aimed at undermining tobacco control in the country. So yes, feel free to submit as many productions as possible, but also ensure that they meet the selection criteria, which is having the potential to create an impact, be journalistic and of good technical quality, and be original, not previously submitted to another for another competition. So, Belinda, maybe you want to say something about this competition while we also wait to see if we have other questions coming up.
Thanks, Caleb, and thanks to ATCA for organizing this media come together and for your great facilitation today and wonderful words from the Executive Secretary, Mr. Sissu, earlier. I just want to say that, even the discussion today from all the panelists would definitely remind us of how important the role of the media is in the work that we all are pursuing in our different countries. I think that just this award being launched today and, having this proper call out to journalists to submit exactly what they've been doing is actually very exciting for the continent. And I'm really glad about this initiative by ATCA. I do hope that we would see, journalists submitting interesting, original, powerful pieces of work, which we have actually seen across the continent, whether it is in, either television or radio, podcasts, written pieces. We are just seeing a very powerful kind of wave when it comes to the way in which the media is working, when it comes to revealing the truths around what tobacco companies are actually doing on our continent. So just want to really encourage people to apply, to share this link, and to really understand that media advocacy is very, very powerful in the role that in the work that we do in trying to get policies to be actually achieved in all these countries. And I just want to encourage people to share as wide as we can and spread the word, and looking forward to some of the entries that we're going to see in this year's award. So thank you, Caleb, for that. And thank you to ATCA.
Thank you very much, Belinda. I'd like to ask if any participant has another comment or question regarding this, the award. If there are no further questions or comments, then I think we can say a big thank you to especially the resource persons we had in today's come together, media come together. The media come together, I should say, it's not going to be a one-off event, but we're going to have regular editions of these gatherings. I'm sure we'd all agree that the discussions have been really useful. The discussions have been really impactful. And so it's going to be a very regular occurrence here at ATCA. And you can be sure to get many more interesting.
Hello, Caleb.
Yes.
Okay, this is Leon's.
Yes, please.
Okay, I just want to, before we close, tell our colleagues here that we will provide more details on the page to also help you know more about the tobacco industry tactics and tobacco industry interference, so that kind of feeding you with documentation in case you will be working and that you need more documents or information. Through this page, you will have access to resources. So this is something that we're going to add to the page to help you have access to the documents or information that you may need for your articles or for your production. That's something I want to mention. And the other thing I want to mention is that we will keep on sharing more documents, through our mailing list with these people, with colleagues here. So all those, all the journalists or media person or communication specialists that have registered will be receiving updates from ATCA, not just in line with the award, but also generally so that your work can also be, we can assist you in your work. So this will be coming, that's a kind of follow-up that we'll be having after this meeting today. And thank you very much for your participation. Others will have more opportunity again, I mean, more of this event as media come together. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think that very well closes today's session. A big thank you as well to the panelists we had, Mr. Richard Baguma from the Uganda Health Communication Alliance, Mr. Philip Jakpo from Corporate Accountability and Public Participation Africa, and Mr. Inusa Sauna from SOS Tabagisme Niger. It was great having us all. Thank you. And we hope to see you all. A big thank you as well to our interpreters who did an excellent job today. Thank you all, and we would see you again some other time. Stay put because we'll be giving you a lot more information. Thank you very much and bye.
Yeah, bye-bye. Nice evening.